All right, we should be all live now. So
Well, we will go ahead and get started. Good evening. My name is Nathan McClellan. I'm the chairperson of the Morgan City Planning Commission. Today is Tuesday, August 18th, 2020, and I want to welcome everyone to this unique format for our commission meeting. Chairperson of the Morgan. We are streaming live on YouTube. For those of you in the public that are watching, welcome to you as well. For those of us here in the Zoom meeting live, we ask that unless you're speaking, please keep your microphone on mute to keep the noise to a minimum. And then just remember to unmute as you're ready to share any of your comments. We have two items on the agenda this evening, but before we jump into that, there is one item of business for the commission, and that is to accept the minutes from our last meeting into the record. These are available and have been distributed electronically, as has been for the last couple of months. In fact, we haven't met for the last couple of months, so these minutes are from April. However, they're on the morgancity.gov website and available to everybody to review. Hopefully there's been a chance for members of the commission to spend some time and take a look at those minutes to ensure that they reflect materially the conversations we had in our last meeting in April. That being said, let me open it up to the members of the commission for any feedback related to those minutes prior to taking any action to read them into the record. Seeing no discussion among the commission, is there a motion that anyone would like to proffer with respect to accepting those?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2020.
Thank you, Lance. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Mr. Carter. All in favor of approving the minutes as noted and currently outlined? Let's vote by raising our hands where I can get a visual of everybody. That looks unanimous among the commission members. Teresa. Let's move into our two agenda items. We have one related to the general plan, and then any updates that reflect upon the commission and some of the things that are going on behind the scenes there as well. So let's start with the review and discussion of the general plan update. So there's been a request for proposal that has been submitted here. Ty, I'm not sure if this is you that is planning to kick this off, but I'm going to turn it over to you to open up this section.
Sure, thanks. So I've mentioned before that we applied for and received a grant to do a general plan update. This is just the very beginning of that process. So we're just about ready to put out a request for proposal, which is our solicitation of interest from companies, organizations that would do a general plan update for us. I wanted to keep the Planning Commission in the loop, and that's what my intent tonight is just to make sure that you're aware of where we're at in the process, and then answer any questions about what we can expect throughout the process, and then any specific, what does this accomplish, or what do we need to kind of prepare for. So the version you have has been updated, so I have a new one with August dates in it. You can see that the version you have, I think, was from July, and then we have Weston provided a lot of comments and wording changes, so we we're consistent on city, county. That was one of the big ones that it kind of went back and forth, but that's where we're at. We want to put the solicitation out, have it out there for about a month, see what we get. Then when we get the proposals back, then we can make a selection, but I'd like to keep the planning commission in the loop as we go through that process, just so you're part of it. And then if there's any particular points of interest or any comments you have on our current general plan or something that you've been waiting for input, to make sure that you know when the appropriate time is to engage with the contractor at that point. So one of the things I will say is this is a joint project with the county and the city. This is the way that the funding required us to do a general plan jointly. And so it's very broad, like general plans are supposed to be. But if we want more kind of on the back end, I can use the same contractor to do something more specific, like a trails and park master plan, future road corridor plan, or anything like that. If we want something more specific from the contractor that's not included in the request for proposal. So the request for proposal is pretty open. We like to see what the different perspectives that the companies will take. If they want to be more community, spend more time on community meetings. If they say, hey, we do it web-based plan. We've got the latest and greatest in planning techniques or whatever it is. We'll just see what we receive as far as interest, and kind of just go from there. So
is there a particular type of contractor that you're looking to get our proposal back from with respect to this? They've done similar types of projects with similar cities, or is this run the gambit and whoever puts their name in the hat is eligible?
Yeah, so there's under the qualifications section, it kind of tells them what we're looking for, but it's people that have done general plans. So sometimes there's planning groups that are specific. I don't have like their names handy of planners that do that. Sometimes it's in conjunction with an engineering firm. So a lot of civil engineers will say, well, we also do general plans as well as impact studies and infrastructure. They do the whole thing, but there can be standalone planning groups. But we do want to see that they've had experience and kind of see what they've done for other entities as we evaluate the end product.
And speaking of the end product, that was one of the things that I was curious about when I looked through the RFP documentation. There's an objective section, section 4, that references 10 elements that will be a part of the general plan. And I only saw 7 elements outlined, and I don't know if the newer version you were referencing, Ty, includes all 10, or if there are only 7. But I was curious if that were complete, or if we're missing 3 of those elements.
No, I think that there's sub-elements, but those are the basic outline, and maybe Weston has more of what's required or included in a general plan, or maybe Steve has other comments, but
and the section I'm referencing in particular are the objectives. And
right.
that's what we're hoping to come out of this with. And I just want to make sure that what's listed there is, that we're aligned internally, that this is these are the objectives. It's the holistic list, or there's a couple of them missing, or other focus areas that might be of interest.
Yeah, I can review that with Weston. One of the things I think would be the annexation declaration, or that's not listed in one of the 7s, but that's one we talked about, and maybe it just got omitted from the document. mine doesn't have a different list than this. And so we either need to say 7 elements or add them. So I don't know if that was just done during editing of different versions, but I'm glad you brought that up so we could make that mesh.
And I thought I heard another individual making a comment that I might have cut off earlier. So you can come off mute and jump in now.
Ty, does the contract have a value? Or what is the value?
So we had one in there, but I want to leave it open-ended to see what their pricing would be. But we have 100,000 for the grant, and we'll see. I think that's a pretty good number. They're sometimes more expensive, but the more expensive ones also include a lot of evaluation for infrastructure. And our proposal doesn't include that because we've done our own, the city's done its own infrastructure studies. We've done our own impact studies already. And then the county doesn't have a lot of infrastructure. And so the scope won't include that level of detail. So I think 100,000 would be good. I didn't want to put it in the proposal and just say, here's, how would you spend our 100,000? I want to see what they.
So you'll ask them to provide an amount for what your proposal wants to do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And just a question on the timelines as well, Ty. So
Okay.
I see the timelines relative to the RFP process, but what are the timelines with respect to the project itself? Once the contract is awarded, in October, then what? Are we looking at different stages and milestones that we expect this person to achieve? Where of those, let's say those 7 objectives, the 3 objectives are delivered, maybe the housing objective and the economic development objective are delivered in the first quarter, and then by the end of the second quarter. I'm just curious what your vision is as far as their ability to deliver on whatever time frame we have in mind as a city and county.
Yeah, so that's something that we need to, there'll be follow-up discussions once we see who the interested parties are, because we need to coordinate that with the county, and the county's operating under a new budget January 1, and ours goes from now until June 30th. So hoping to have the whole project done by May, but because they're doing two separate plans, we'll just have to have that discussion with, in that selection process to make it within a year at least. I think we're hoping more of a 6-month timeframe.
This grant that you've been awarded, is that exclusive to the city's coffers, or is that a county-wide grant? In other words, with this project being done in partnership with the county, are each of the individual entities paying for a portion of this, or is it aggregated?
So it's our grant. We signed for it. We'll get the reimbursement, but what we're doing is using the county for their matching funds. So they have, there's $40,000 of match money, which would potentially take the project up to a total of 140,000. They might have 20,000 in matching funds and the city as well, but they don't have a grant obligation or award document. They're just participating with us taking the lead on the project.
Ty, are we going to wait for them to present something to the Planning Commission, or would it be advantageous for us to maybe everybody take an idea, an area of the city or something, and kind of come up with some ideas and plans and talk to people around and get some ideas, maybe talk to a developer too, to see if there's anybody thinking if this changes in Morgan City, then it makes sense for me to come in here and do a development or something like that. Or are we going to wait for this group to present something and then we're going to go to work, or how do you see it?
No, I see the planning commission taking an active role in everything you've dealt with. Every time we have a subdivision request or a zone change, you guys are familiar with kind of those pain points or whatever you have where you're like, yeah, it fits the code, but I'm really not comfortable with the way that's laid out, or I think we need to maybe look a little further down the road or focus on a certain area of town. And so I think you should actively be doing that now. Once we have the contractor on board, they will have community meetings, but hopefully they'll have a session with the planning commission as part of that. And so you'll have hopefully your own chance to comment on your own homework that you've.
So do you think that they will solicit from us, the planning commission, ideas as they go along, or how do you kind of see that going?
Well, I'll have to bridge that gap, just so I can say I'll keep the planning commission up to speed on where the project is at and how that's going. And then if there's opportunities, I'll keep reminding, I'll remind them to engage, or else I will myself. But it might just be, hey, this is when the community meetings, make sure you guys have a chance to go attend and have your voice heard.
Okay.
So I don't think there's anything specific about doing a formal process with the planning commission, because it is two separate jurisdictions all in one project. So yeah, the more proactive you are and more engaged you are as planning commission members, the better.
Okay.
So Ty, will there be two, you referenced or hinted to maybe two reports? Will they be independent studies?
So depends on the section. So like when they do a demographics or economic, a lot of that information is county level information. And so that kind of background, our growth patterns, it's going to be pretty much, the city and the county are going to have a lot of the same numbers. We'll have it, city specific, but I don't see that being a whole separate process. We'll probably just let them do that. But the product is two separate general plans. So the beginning of that plan, like when you read through the data portions, a lot of that will probably be really similar to what the county's plan includes.
Yeah, we certainly come together because we're inclusive of the county, but at the same time, there'd be differences between
yeah, for sure,
focus and strategy and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Question for Weston. Weston, are you going to be involved? Do you see yourself being involved with this group on the planning, or?
Yeah, I'll definitely be a part of it. I'll read their documents as they submit them and provide feedback and watch the process. As you guys know, I'm part-time, and so I can't actively, be a full-time participant, but I definitely will be involved in it.
So, Ty, at the end of the day, they may make proposals that the planning commission is not comfortable with. Obviously, it can be what we want locally. I guess on the other hand is perhaps they may present something that we haven't thought about, or have not concerned ourselves with, that actually might make sense as well. So I would expect it would probably end up being a little bit of our input or a lot of our input. Plus there may be some things in there that they come up with that might make sense to us as well. So I think it's going to be a little bit of, maybe a combination of what we like and perhaps some things that they suggest that make sense as well. So
So their deliverable is the general plan, and it's up to us to actually adopt it or make any modifications to it. So they'll propose, this is what we've put together, and this is what we've heard, and this is how we view some things you need to consider. And based on that, we will have our own opportunity to make any changes on our own before it goes to the city council for adoption. So then we have full ownership of kind of that very end product.
I have a question for Steve Garside. Steve, have you been involved in anything like this?
Yeah, putting out an RFP is a pretty common practice, and so this is just kind of an invitation. It doesn't bind us. It just puts it out there to who's interested in participating or getting involved in this project. And then once we see who is interested, and then we come up with that contract, that's the real critical part. Will be that next step.
I specifically, as you look at the input that we can share as a planning commission tonight, what outcome are you looking for? What guidance, what direction? Is this informational, or are you looking for specific input?
Well, your comments already, as you read through that, I really appreciate the element that you already found. But my main goal is just to keep the planning commission up to speed and to present it so that we had this conversation as a group before I just sent out the RFP. And so if there's, maybe specific comments or any final changes, I'm open to those now, but it doesn't require any action or anything like that from the planning commission, just questions, comments, concerns, and anything else I should be aware of as we start down this path. I'm, even if a lot of it doesn't change, and I've said this before, it really does strengthen our discussions knowing that the general plan was just recently updated and not from 1999, because people will look at that and a lot of conversations like, yeah, I know it's that zone, but do you really want that? Because it was so long ago, right? And it's exciting to me because it'll also, as you guys have things come to you, it'll have been reviewed with our own current planning commission members that had just recently gone through that process. And so instead of it becoming an individual, I like this, I like that, we can start to say, this is what the city wants. Because we all went through that process. It might not be 100% like what any one of us agree with, but people ask all the time, what does the city want? What does the city want to do there? It's like, we go through the process and we find out what the city wants. I can't tell you what the city's looking for, but with a recently updated general plan, we'll have that ability. So I just appreciate the interest and all of your efforts to help make Morgan the great place that it is, continue on into the future. So.
I like that. One thing you mentioned earlier, that we could find that some of those interested in bidding for this project may have different specialties. You also mentioned, something like the riverfront development area or trail system type of thing. I'm curious if I look at, again, just going back to those objectives, because that's ultimately what we're trying to get from this project. And I don't know where those things might fall in, if that's land use or public services, but where I'm getting at is this recreation component. This, Morgan is a beautiful city, a beautiful valley. It's also the most privately owned land in the whole state. So all these beautiful places, but you can't get to it unless you know somebody. And so I'm curious, as part of this plan, if there's a way for the average citizen to be able to legally enjoy some of the public views and as part of our general plan to get, if that is the riverfront, if that is a trail system, if it is partnership with some of these private landowners, but using the assets we have in the city and the county in a way that's built into the plan, I think is and I don't know where that fits as far as these objectives, but I like the idea of having that be explicitly called out.
Yeah, so a more detailed one would be a secondary process. If we're comfortable with the contractor on board, that's kind of how I'm viewing it, is to see how well they're doing and what the product is that they deliver, and then maybe do a follow-up project for a specific thing like a park or trail plan. The other thing is it also sets off kind of our secondary process, working with Weston and Steve and the Planning Commission as we go to update our ordinances that get a lot more specific and detailed into, the general plan just kind of sets the tone on the overall view of land use, but then that also gives us a really good idea of where we go from here with our own ordinances. So for example, if it suggests a mixed use zone or something like that, we'll have to create ordinances to work that in because we currently don't have that. And the general plan might just say, yeah, you got to do better with trails or open up some more recreation opportunities or outdoor experiences. And then that would be a secondary process to get the detail that I think what you're asking is, as far as a list of priorities and opportunities. And then we just keep looking for grants and opportunities and go from there. Or we could just get a list of phone numbers for all the private landowners.
Either or. Well, keep bringing in the money, Ty.
I got a question for you. Is there a way, or do you have the means to find a city about the size of Morgan that has just went through this process? That it's always best on these things to be second sometimes, to feel their growing pains and talk to somebody. Maybe the mayor could, and talk to somebody and say, okay, we did this in 12 months. And man, about 6 months in, we sure wish we would have done this different. And we wish we would have thought about this. And we run into our deadline of 12 months and we had to get it done. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, so I have a city manager email email group. So the city managers have an association, and I have been engaging with other people on their process. Roosevelt just barely started a process, but because of this grant opportunity, there's a lot of people doing it at the same time. So we can find, and I think Layton just didn't you guys just do a general plan update? So it's fresh on our planner's mind. But as far as the size, we probably want to focus more on the company, because the communities our same size and population are way different. That's what I haven't found, is somebody in all my experience comes from yes, cities, Blanding's about the exact same size as us, but they're surrounded by public land and an entirely different economic base, median income, land values. It's not in proximity to the Wasatch Front. And so it's hard to say, well, we've got a or a sister city out there, or somebody that we can compare ourselves 100% to, but the process is the same. And I think the outcome and the capabilities of the contractors that put in should be able to give us a pretty good product.
Ty, just building off Wes's point there, maybe checking the referrals as they come back. Is that built into? I don't think I saw a spot in the proposal document, but you know, where we might get referrals on the last 3 projects they worked on and reach out to those cities and get some perspective as part of the evaluation process. And I don't know if that was in the point system at the end or not.
Yeah, so we left.
There it is, reference review. There's some 10 points there.
Yeah, and then I just envision, I think we are going to have a lot of follow-up conversations. So it's not just we submitted, we got scored and ranked, you know, at the county and the county planner and I will probably be the ones to take that initial look at the proposals that we have, you know, based on how many that we get. But yeah, we want to vet those and ask around. That part's not in the document, but that's something we'll be doing. So
thank you. What other questions or comments related to this project and request for proposal that would be sent out for contractors to bid on?
Steve, maybe a question for you. Once in place, how binding is the general plan?
The general plan, well, it gets a lot of deference because of the work that you go through to get it in there. I mean, it's truly a grassroots thing. You'll have a lot of community input, planning commission, city council input. But again, you have to remember that it's a living, breathing document. It's the guiding document. But that's not to say that it's easily changed. The deference that's given to a general plan is that if you're going to change it, you have to find one of 2 things. Either that there was a mistake when it was initially implemented, there was some oversight or something along those lines, or there's been a significant change in circumstances in the meantime that perhaps that portion of the general plan is no longer applicable. So it does have more deference than just your typical ordinance. You have to make those findings.
Good information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Feel free to jump in if anything else comes to mind. Ty, any closing thoughts there?
no, it's hopefully you're as excited as I am.
This is exciting. Planning the city is a good thing for the planning commission to be engaged in. All right.
Ty's doing jumping jacks as soon as he gets off.
This is what I look like when I'm extremely happy, just so you know.
It's as good as it gets.
It's a great project, and the timing is good as well. I know we've had a number of projects come before us where you know, the general plan was in question, and the timing of its last refresh you know, stood out to us like a sore thumb, and this will be a great way to refresh the plan and reflect the needs of the community as we move forward. So I think the timing's great for this, and thank you for putting together the proposal to get the grant and get this initiative kicked off. All right, well, that's our first agenda item. The second agenda item are related to updates with ongoing projects. I was hoping we could maybe do this twofold. The way it's written on the agenda is a planning commission project update. There are a couple of initiatives that we have been doing some research work behind the scenes, and so this isn't the time to go in and have more of that discussion, but you know, the most recent one is one that Ty also referenced earlier with the mixed use zone, looking at how we think about mixed use zones and the future of what those zones and the ordinances can be within the city. So that's been one initiative that we haven't met for a few months, and so we've got some assignments and takeaways as members of the commission that we'll follow up on. But that's one open item that we've been thinking about as far as looking at proposing changes to the ordinances there. With respect to the city, one of the things that we've done in prior meetings, and Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was getting an update on how some of the initiatives that have been recommended or passed through the commission have then resolved themselves within the city council meetings. And I guess that might be something that's worth taking a look at as well, where the most recent project that we finalized was the Pheasant Run subdivision. So we've got some of these initiatives that we can see happening in the city behind the Wasatch Shadows subdivision, behind the Tractor Supply, with the homes project going in there that we've seen come through the commission. But I didn't know if a spokesperson for the city council would like to maybe just give an update on where some of those projects have landed, and in particular with the perspective of are they progressing as intended, or are there things that we should be thinking about regarding any planning considerations for the future as projects like these come before us. I didn't direct that to anyone specifically, but Tony, do you want to jump in? And you're on mute if you're speaking.
Yeah, what I know, and with a little help from Ty here, as I understand it, the project behind Tractor Supply. So Ty, if I misspeak here, just step in, okay? So I understand that there have been a couple of building permits issued on that project. Is that correct?
Yep. So the first two buildings have the building permits ready to go. So 2 4-plexes, they're right at the start of the subdivision have been reviewed. Then they have a couple of 3-plexes that are still under review. So what they're doing on that project is they're taking the building, getting it reviewed, getting all of the bugs worked out for building permits. So then they can just keep kind of using that same template moving forward, because they had to redesign some of the building ideas. But most of the infrastructure is in the ground. They're ready to start building, and I think they're just going to do pavement and curb gutter and sidewalk last. But because they are the same builder owner, they're not selling lots. They're going to start building units here shortly.
The Harding property down off of Island Road, there's been no building permits issued on that project yet. However, it sounded like last night that there's a list out there of potential buyers that want to buy lots in that subdivision, and it's, as I understand, it seems like there's a lot of interest in those lots down there on the Harding property when that finally does get ready to go. But at this time, there's been no building permits issued on that property. Work is being done up on Mahogany Ridge on that the single family residence. I'm not, I can't remember all the names of all of these subdivisions, but it's the final project up there of single family residences. It's progressing. Ty, we haven't issued any building permits on that yet, have we? Or have we on that project? But all the infrastructure is being put in and being worked on right now as well. So that should be ready to go pretty soon as well. So so there's those 3 projects all in the works.
And just one question on that last one. I don't know if this is related or not, but we had a project come through that I feel like I missed the resolution on. And this is the one that was just off 700 East, but on the west side of 700 East, not on the hill where the rest of Mahogany Ridge is. But it wasn't all those single family homes. It was the patio home, townhome development. And it originally was, I think, discussed that it would be marketed towards, you know, an active adult clientele, although they indicated they weren't going to necessarily limit it to that or brand it as that necessarily. And that was the part that always confused me a bit, because clearly other jurisdictions are able to market properties and as 55 and older, or adult only, or active adults, or whatever branding they use. And I don't know that vision ever came to life on that particular project. I don't even know where that one landed, to be honest with you, if those have been built and sold, if they're still in development. But I am curious about that, particularly in light of all the conversation we've had with some of our planning as well, and you know, with the general plan and some of the things that we're looking for within the city. Is that something, you know, is there a demand, first of all, and a need? Do we want it? But I am curious, because those were stipulations that we had called out. We couldn't mandate it as a planning commission, but we definitely discussed them, encouraged them, called it out. And I don't know that those came to life. I don't know if you know anything about that, or if it's just as murky for you.
Are you directing that question to me, Nathan, or
Well,
or-
you or anyone who knows.
Yeah, I remember the conversation, the question we had concerning that. As you mentioned, we didn't mandate that. Yes, I mean, yeah, they're moving forward as well, but there is no stipulation on them as to who can occupy those dwellings. So, good question. I guess it's a question I would ask Steve: is legally, can you establish that sort of a development where it's a 55 and older, or is that something that can be done legally? Just a question for you, Steve.
Sure, yeah, you can always market it that way, but the enforcement of it is basically, this is what we hope happens here. I mean, they market it a little bit stronger than that, but as far as enforcement of it goes, the city would not be able to enforce that, and in fact, even the developer would not be able to, couldn't enforce that. So again, it's a desire, but you can't make it a mandate.
And it'd be hard to control subsequent sales too. I mean, something could start out and then easily change.
Correct. Resale.
Yep.
So that'd be true when we see these marketed in other cities. That's all it is marketing. They have the same limitations with their ability to enforce that. And it's almost just people self-select to go into those communities, and hopefully they do.
That's correct. And they market it that way. I mean, you'll see them that, they won't have the tot lots, and they won't have some of those other amenities, and they have, really their yards aren't big. And so it's really not that attractive to younger families that have active children. And so that's why they try to focus it that way. But again, it can't be restricted. I mean, most people understand that when it comes to purchasing a home, it's more the monetary part than anything else.
The senior community may not have a climbing wall, in other words.
Just one for me and you, Dave.
Yeah, you're right on.
Okay.
If you want to be the only person that does all of the repairs for the entire community, you're welcome to move in.
Well, Nathan, I think those three projects, as you recall, there's like 40 homes on the Harding property, 20 up on Mahogany Ridge. I forget what the total units was eventually in phases over behind Tractor Supply. This is just part of phase one. I don't remember, was it 90 something units over there eventually? But is there anything else, Ty, that I'm forgetting as far as?
No, just one thing that was maybe different just for the planning commission's information is the Pheasant Run was approved as a single phase, and they're trying to build it out as a 2-phase. So there's a waiting list, but one of the reasons why there's no lots for sale is because one, they haven't recorded, but it's also going to be difficult to record phase one without phase two. Because if they separate that, phase one has to kind of get reviewed again to be a standalone. And we reviewed it all as a one entire development. And so not that it's not allowed, but that's also part of the kind of part that's up in the air for us, is to see how that plays out. If they're gonna, do that as phase one, sell lots in phase two, because the detention pond at the end is separate from phase one where they're building the homes, but it's required to make that work. And so if they end up subdividing the property, then they'd have to make 3 parcels and put an easement through it. Or I'm not sure how you own half the property and record. So it's getting reviewed. It's just, just how that plays out is just a little different, just so you approved it all as one project in its entirety, but it's turning out to be more of a phased approach at this point.
Are they running into some development snafus, or why not proceed as originally outlined as one project, especially if they have a waiting list? It seems like the demand's there. Why not build the whole thing out as originally planned?
Yeah, we're not sure, because it's kind of on their strategy. And I don't know if it's because they want to sell phase one lots first and have that fund the second phase, or if it's just they figure they can get that part done before the other. I'm not sure what the issue is, or if they want to have that done and not be required to have that fire access until later. That could be a discussion with the current landowner. So anyway, all the components are there. It's just how it comes together. I'm not sure.
I've been told he's got a waiting list on like almost every lot, 2 or 3 deep. Phases 1 and 2.
Yeah. So
I have a question though. Somebody mentioned, Tony, or it was you, somebody mentioned that they're not paving the streets until the end of the project behind Tractor Supply. Why would we allow that?
So if it's
real quick, behind Tractor Supply, it is actually getting paved tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Maybe add a little bit to what Tony said. It is getting paved tomorrow. I was actually up on Mahogany 4 and 5 today with our engineer and the developer. The paving is done. All the infrastructure is done, except for they are waiting on gas. I think the gas company is out a little bit, so they'll have to do gas. Sidewalk, I think they were hoping for a final walkthrough or an inspection from our end, like the city, within about the next month, they were hoping. And so they are moving along. They just are a little bit held up with gas. And then the Pheasant Run, yeah, there's a lot of the utilities are in the ground. I mean, the pond has been dug over on the other property. It's kind of interesting to see what happens, like Ty says, where they're over there doing work, but we just don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, the Riverstone behind Tractor Supply, everything is in. It will be paved starting tomorrow. So,
but that is a choice that they have, just so you're aware that you can't occupy until all the improvements are done, but they can build and sell lots before the pavement's done if they.
No, that makes total sense. No, I thought you were saying you were going to occupy a building at a time and then put in finish the infrastructure at the end. I'm like, we've never done that before. So
no, just start building. Yeah, that's all I meant. So,
Nathan?
Yeah.
If I may take a moment, this is probably for my own personal well-being as anything. I need to ask Ty a question here. We was having that discussion last night, Ty, about that development. I would call it the south or the east end of Mahogany Ridge, where they originally came in and wanted to put the apartments in, the high density housing. Remember we was talking about that last night? Was it my understanding that is zoned though medium density? And if they wanted to, I was not clear on what was going on there entirely. Could you speak to that for a moment?
I'm not sure what that's zoned either because, and I wasn't here
Right.
when they did the first proposal. I was just saying that if it was a similar development with the same zoning, that they would just need to start the process over, but they wouldn't be actually going through a zone change. That's all my point was.
I don't know if anybody on the planning commission remembers us discussing that particular parcel of ground. Mark Thane came in, and as I recall, it was like, again, I apologize, it was a couple of years ago, but it seemed like there was 4 or 5 units there, apartment units. But anyway, in order for that to proceed, that would have to go through the planning process again, would it not, Ty? It's been a couple, 2 or 3 years since that was posed. So just a heads up, that may be coming your way eventually as well. But again, I'm sorry, I'm not being terribly descriptive, but it's on that very extreme, again, I would call it south or east side of the Mahogany
Yeah,
Ridge.
I do recall that conversation.
Is
What's
that
that?
Mountain Vista Villas? Is that what you're referring to?
It could be. Again,
Tony, is that the one by the range right there behind Family Tree?
yeah, it'd be south of that or east of that, which I would call it.
Yeah.
More. How about southeast of that? Yeah.
And Tony, I do remember that conversation, and it's come before us a couple of times. One, when they were looking to move that project on the other side of 700 East, and you know, the decision out of this commission was keep it there. And so then they came back and they proposed how their units would, their multifamily units would be built out. But I think they were really struggling with some topography challenges.
Yeah.
And so they were going back to the drawing board to maximize what they could do there, given, you know, navigating the contours of the land.
I guess the reason I mentioned it is eventually, you know, you may be dealing with that again as well. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know I kind of put you on the spot to review a few of those projects. There was one other that I failed to mention that we've been looking at as a commission specifically as well, and this came out as we were going through the process with the Pheasant Run subdivision and the access points into the subdivision. That was another area, and Weston had provided some language and some examples and some recommendations that we reviewed previously, and we haven't closed that out yet either. So that's an open discussion item amongst the commission, as well as evaluating what that looks like from an ordinance standpoint, having access points into a subdivision, and, you know, based on size or number of units or what have you, and a number of considerations there. So those are the two, well, at least the two recent open items that the commission is working on behind the scenes as well. Final thoughts before we wrap up. I don't have anything else to share on this agenda item from a commission update standpoint. Anyone else on the commission have an update to add?
Chair.
Yes.
So just to give a couple of updates from staff, just to let you know, we've been having discussions with Daryl Rupp, owns a property off of 400 West. He has already come before COVID to a development meeting, discuss a few options that on there. You're going to see that probably next planning commission meeting or after. It in the general plan has it going to low density, meaning he could rezone to do a subdivision on his specific area. We'll see that probably next month or the month after. We'll have a new submittal with Buzzies with Doug Whitcliffe. He submitted last week, but we're still working out the details to get a more complete application, let's just say.
Yeah, that was something with our last meeting that was requested. We had two examples that we reviewed. One we tabled, which was his. The other one was a packet that was maybe more of a model packet of how this should look. And so I don't know if part of that encouragement as he's putting this together will include that, especially where it's hard for us being, I assume we're going to continue meeting virtually for the near term at least. And so anything that can help us visualize the materials and what he's proposing, and that's going to be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it is much better. But we could fix a few things since he missed the deadline for this meeting. He's got a little bit of time to get a clearer picture. The other item is what we were just talking about, Tony, regarding that area over there that's, I don't even know what you call it, northeast of Sage Drive and Sunset. They kind of dead end, and then there's an area there. Yes, the wall group had come in, been through the entire project to go ahead and have apartment complexes. It did go through the city council with approval. That zone is already an RM15. That project though did get 1 or 2 extensions. Tony will probably tell you that those have all expired. So if they wanted to keep with that particular project or something similar, they'd have to resubmit. There is another item on this is there was a contract through the city with the NA group regarding when that North Morgan was going for bankruptcy. There has already been a recorded subdivision over there, and it's called Vista Villas Phase 1. Speaking to Gary Crane, our attorney, to see if this is part of that contract that they could go ahead and start that project. And Gary indicated that it is part of that agreement. So there is a subdivision already approved in 2006 that could be just started. So the group has said they are looking at starting to develop as they've already got all of the rest of the projects in North Morgan done. Their intent has not been clear yet. So we don't know exactly what they want to do.
When we were discussing, when we were discussing that Vista Villa, I think we're talking about the same area, I think. Did they once upon a time come to us and did they want to rezone that into move it from RM15 to RM7? Was that, I can't recall.
There was a discussion. They had an RM7 is where the Mountain Vista Villas are currently, and it was an RM15 on the mountain. When they were wanting to put the apartments down by the freeway, they'd come in to see if they could swap zoning. That was not received well, and it did not occur. So that's when they proceeded to keep Mount Vista Villas down by Mount Vista Homes. And they did a project for apartments, which were Valley View Apartments, but that one has, their approvals have lapsed on that.
Right. But that piece of property is zoned RM15 currently.
Yeah, and currently there's a project, a recorded plat for Vista Villa Phase 1 that was in the contract when they purchased the entire group. They just have to choose, if they're going to choose another project, they'll need to go through planning and zoning and go through current ordinances, or they have the option of doing that project. We don't know yet.
Proceeding with RM15.
And the project that was approved was 23 homes on 8,000 square foot lots. And it is recorded at the plat if anybody wants to review, but we're not sure if that's what their intent is at this time.
Thank you.
If they were to come back to change their process, the 8,000 square foot lots are grandfathered into the previous approval, but if I'm not mistaken, we have changed that, and that's no longer the smallest. So if they came back in for re-review, they would give up their right for that size of lot. Is that accurate?
That would be a reference to our attorney. Steve might know if he's reviewed that contract before, but I'm not sure.
It's my recollection, and I have to double check because it's been a long time since I've looked at that. But part of that development agreement guaranteed them a certain number of equal residential units, and so they are still likely to be vested in that. But yeah, we'll have to review that. We'll have to cross that bridge if we come to it. But yeah, we'll review it again.
Thank you. Anything else, Teresa?
No, unless, does anybody need an update on the Young Street Bridge? I would turn that over to Tony or Dave or Ty. Does anybody have any questions on that?
When?
2040. No,
21.
We're just starting the UDOT's process to select an engineer company. So I've heard from 4 or 5 different companies that have asked me the questions about it. They're interested, and it's called the RPLUC process. So I think that that's going out, and we should have a engineering company selected probably at the end of September, 1st of October. Then they start engineering, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But it's officially started. So.
Well, those are our updates, unless there's anything else that somebody else wanted to bring up. But that being said, that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. So before wrapping up, any final thoughts with regards to this agenda item?
Yeah, I had about building what we were talking about just a minute ago, and I guess this would be so I don't understand all the contract stuff, but so we could potentially be bound to a design to all this stuff that was approved in 2006 today. And why I ask, because as a city employee in with the streets department, I do not like the layout and how the streets are aligned, but we could potentially be bound to this the way it is with no input, nothing, how it was done for 2006. Correct?
You broke up a little bit, but as I understand it, yes, we could. I mean, that doesn't mean that we couldn't sit down and negotiate something to see if we could get, a better final product with them still being able to have the density that they were guaranteed under the agreement. And so there's always that possibility. Absolutely.
I was curious. I was hoping, even if we have to allow the lot size or the whatever, but if we could maybe just get the layout changed a little bit, something like that. Just was when I saw it was looked at, that there's what made me wonder and curious. So that answers that thing.
I thought that you always appreciated those kind of challenges.
All right, thanks, Lance. Anyone else have anything? Well, with that, we will wrap up our meeting today, and this meeting is now adjourned.